Right. How are you going to get the enforcement?
See, you bounce around from issue to issue to issue. Once I get you in checkmate on one issue, you bounce around to another.
No, Charles, I'm just trying to take it step by step. I'm assuming you're right, that you have all the evidence and you have enough to convict. And what are you going to do? How are you going to enforce it?
We're at least on a level playing field or better with your grand jury process. The same enforcement issue is a problem with your grand jury process as it is a bit of a problem, I admit, with the trial jury process.
If I might share an experience I actually had being called as a witness before the grand jury, being subpoenaed to do so. And then when I was there, many of my assassins who tried to murder me were sitting in the lobby outside the grand jury room before we went in. I spoke with the prosecutor. The grand jury is ruled by the prosecutor. And I spoke with him in the lobby prior to going into the grand jury room. I advised him to the incompetency, the bias, the conflicts of interest, and the lack of actual knowledge of the principal witness that they were using to per se execute an acquaintance of mine that I was called to witness against. This prosecutor abused his position and the trust of the grand jury and failed to transmit the evidence of the incompetency of his witness and continued on after I had already been in there with the conviction of this man for the crimes that they were charging without relaying the information of the incompetency of his partner witness that he had going in to do this witch trial hanging of this man. And this is what the dangers of the grand jury are. Whenever it has become an instrumentality, the prosecution, as Scalia pointed out in his book, that's exactly what's happened in these Roman Just Civilis inquisitorial star chamber courts and their hijacked grand juries. This is the dangers we have with this system that's in place today, and this is what demands us to form our own grand juries without, in my estimation.
Sounds good, Chris.
But Chris, how do you propose to enforce with your own grand jury?
I'm not sure the enforcement is something you can operate with the people's grand jury exactly, other than perhaps tar and feathers or a rope or other methodologies of similar type of enforcement effect. However, if you have hold on.
Well, I had to, let's just kind of take it step by step. You said with a rope or a tar and feathering. You know, that statement is implying that, you know, you're considering doing something outside of due process.
No. I said the jury could order that sort of stuff. I didn't say I was going to do it. I would never speak anything of that nature whatsoever. I don't want you to put words in my mouth, please. And you didn't let me finish my statement. What I was trying to say is that if you had a verdict of exoneration, that might not be reviewable by another court, and there wouldn't be a court of competent jurisdiction because of our court is not competent to be a jurisdictional overseer and interpreter of the people's will, in my estimation.
Well, I certainly didn't mean to put words in your mouth. Forgive me if that's what you thought I did. I didn't mean to do that. I just don't see any way around this other than utilizing, you know, the current system that we have of a grand jury being impaneled and examining the evidence and using the numbers of people, the crowd, the critical mass, by petitioning all the states to do the same thing. If we could get a nationwide effort to grow and to do this, we can make enough noise to achieve our goal. And I just see the trial by jury strategy as being very time consuming and expensive. And it's not as easy to crowdsource or to use the crowd, sourcing the crowd, the critical masses, in the trial jury effort as it would be to do in the grand jury petition strategy.
What makes you say that, Michael?
Because we could find people all over the country that are willing to petition their grand jury in their state, in their federal district court, and access their senators, their congressmen, to demand the grand jury hear the evidence and see the petition.
Point of clarification. It sounds as though you're not even on board with our forming our own grand juries. You're sounding like you want
No, absolutely not. You must not have read my text earlier in the chat. I texted quite lengthy chat defending what you're doing. You can read it. It's in there.
Well, then how come you're asking, if we're forming our own grand juries, how come you just said that our people on the grassroots will be asking the de facto municipal courts to form their grand juries?
No, the point of what you're doing could be used to gather consensus and finding of evidence to present to the grand jury that we are petitioning as cause of action by the people. It would be a grassroots uprising, a methodical, systematic, due process, common law grand jury of consensus. Now, you won't have enforcement power, but you'll certainly have the ability to form consensus and build evidence. And that's your value.
Well, then how come you're talking about going through, taking our grand jury verdict and then using that to petition the de facto municipal courts to form another grand jury?
I'm just saying, use it as a motivator to as further evidence. We need everybody's help. This is a Herculean task.
I know, but we need a plan. We need details to the plan, and I don't comprehend why if you're agreeing that we really got the authority to form our own grand jury, then how come you're saying, well, after we form our own grand jury, then we ask the de factos to form another grand jury to reaffirm what our grand jury just said?
Because you don't have enforcement power.
Do you comprehend about town constables having enforcement in their own local townships?
We don't have time. We don't have the time.
See, you're in too big a rush to do it right, aren't you?
No, I'm in a hurry to get it done and to get the evidence before a court that has enforcement power.
There's two ways of interpreting that. There's lawful authority to enforce or having boots on the ground ready to enforce. Can you be more clear when you're using that? We don't have enforcement powers. Are you talking about not having lawful authority, or are you talking about we don't have boots on the ground?
No, there needs to be both. But I'm not willing at this juncture to be involved in any form or method of enforcement that is not statutorily backed up and defended.
Right, I am too, and I can point to your statutes that show that we've got the exactly that enforcement authority. So that problem should be null and void, Michael. We got the right of citizen's arrest. In the name of God, we got the statutory authority to do this enforcement.
In this current environment, you attempt a citizen's arrest, it's either gonna be suicide or lifetime in jail.
That's because you don't have the intellectual power to do swordplay against the de facto judicial officers, the prosecutors. They will back off and put their tails between their legs when they confront people that know how to speak law in their face to them.